Now let's take a look at dealing with the elbows and working with setting the elbow up so it doesn't crash as much into the muscle. We should be able to drive the bicep up a bit once the muscle starts to flex and drive some of this out of the way so that we don't have this immediate crash happening. I mean, this character is terrible because as soon as the arm gets any distance away from its initial angle, it just starts to crash into each other, and that's just going to look terrible during animation if we're going to try and take a character like this and get it to deform. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the built-in deformers in the skin modifier. What we have is a couple different ones. I was just playing with one there, so I'm just going to remove it quickly and start from scratch. What we're going to do is we're going to look at grabbing an area of vertices and apply it to an area. I'm going to first generate some of the problems and show you where some of the issues lie in using this system and where you have to be careful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at grab some of the vertices I need. And then I want to fix the area. First, let's start with the three different type of gizmos there are deformers. There's a joint angle deformer, bulge angle deformer, and morph angle deformer. Joint deformers is designed strictly to deal with just the joint area, so it will work over a joint area very nicely. Bulge angle deformer would be doing something like the flexing in the bicep, and the morph angle deformer will take the angle and morph the character for you. Something to note is none of these can be mirrored to the other side in skin. In Mac 7, skin morph has been added, which basically takes the place of this one here, and is a far more robust tool, allows for mirroring from one side to the other, and works far better on the joints that have more than one rotation angle. That's something else I should point out. Essentially, none of these can be really used effectively on something like a shoulder or a hip very well, because as you start dealing with Euler rotations and you have multiple axes rotating on a joint system, these will start to cause problems that you simply can't get around. You can get them to work to some degree, but you'll always sort of run into a problem. And like I've said, trying to create all of the targets needed to get the kind of flexing that's required throughout an entire joint system like the shoulder area really isn't a good job for this sort of system anyhow. I'd much prefer to do it with some stretchy bones and set that up and do it with skinning. On the elbow, though, we can use them. Let's start with the joint angle deformer. So what we do is we pick the vertices we're going to use. We also choose the bone that's going to be the bone that's going to drive it. So the first bone in the arm is the one that's going to determine the angle between basically the upper arm and the lower arm. So this envelope here that I've just picked is the first bone in the chain, and that was the bone that was actually the full length, and we'd shrunk it down shorter in the original DVDs in the first two. So we're going to use it and get the angle between the two, and we have those vertices picked, and we say add gizmo, adds a joint angle deformer. And what this gives you then is the ability to be able to edit the lattice. So the new rollouts appeared here, and what you can do is you can pick vertices in the lattice and you can adjust them. Now you can't really change the amount of control points or anything. You're pretty much stuck with what you've got, which isn't so bad because often you just need to tweak it a bit. There is, however, a far bigger problem with the way this works. Is watch what happens as I scrub the timeline and my forearm starts to rip. Now you can see that I'm no longer getting a nice soft twist in my forearm. Essentially what happens is the joint angle deformer immediately takes over from any of the skinning that was done on the vertices that were included inside of that joint angle deformer. So although it would make short work of fixing the issues and trying to keep volume in an elbow